I want to add a little disclaimer here. I am not liable for any damage to your eyesight after viewing close-ups of my face. In this video, I'm going to be joining up various pieces of Amazigh or Mozambique veneer to create the backer panel. If you guys haven't done this before, all you really need are a veneer knife, some masking tape, and some veneer tape. So what I'm doing is I've got the pieces, the width of the pieces is just how they came, but then I'll have to go through and put a straight edge on the edges that I'm going to join together. So I'm doing that off camera. I'm not showing you that, but all I use for that is an MDF fence that I know is pretty straight, and again my veneer knife to cut through. So the first step in joining two pieces of veneer is obviously jointing the edges so that they're straight, and then using masking tape to pull the edges together. Once you have one side masking tape together, you flip it over and use the veneer tape to provide a permanent joint, a seam. Then once that veneer tape is dry, you can flip that back over to the side with the masking tape on and pull the masking tape off. And now the side that had the masking tape on is actually the side that you're going to glue down to your substrate. If you see me using that black pencil, all I'm doing is making a mark on the MDF backer that I have laid down that basically signifies where the seam is. A lot of times with this veneer that has linear grain, it's really difficult to see the seam through the grain, which is good. I mean, that means whenever you're done, you're not going to be able to see the seam. But it's helpful. I've gone through this process, put the veneer tape down only to find that I did not veneer tape the seam, and I just have this piece of veneer tape going along the face of a veneer. So that's all I'm doing there. Another little trick that I've discovered, a lot of times when you're putting the masking tape on the one side, you see guys kind of stretch it out. It does have a little stretch and it helps to pull the seams together. What happens when you flip the piece over and you go to apply the veneer tape, sometimes the edges can kind of buckle, or one edge can slip over top of another edge. And so if you see me kind of lifting the veneer panel up from the bottom, all I'm trying to do is pull that seam back together tight, so that one edge is not slipped over top of another one. Once you get them slipped into position and you press down, the veneer tape dries pretty quickly, and we'll hold it that way. That little cup that you see me grab actually has just water in it and a sponge. The water is from a purification filter called Zero Water. I don't have distilled water. That's really the best thing to use. But in any event, if you don't have distilled water, try to use the most pure water you can find, because the problem with using tap water, it has impurities in it, some cases metals, dissolved solids, that can interact with the tannins in the wood veneer and cause staining when you go to remove the tape. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. Now I'm going to play a little catch up here. The piece that you see me handling now, I did not have another piece of veneer that was going to be long enough. I did have a bunch of offcuts, so what I actually had to do was joint a piece of veneer and then join them across the width of the piece, which is not ideal. It certainly is going to be far more visible than a seam along the long grain, but it's what I had to do. And again, this is the backer panel. This is going to go on the bottom side of a chessboard, so probably will never be seen or looked at, but for a few times in its lifetime. So what I did off camera is I tried to find two pieces of offcut that the grain matched as best as possible. And I think I got lucky. So all of my veneer here was in a flitch. It was in series. So I just ended up getting two offcuts that were next to each other in the tree. And the grain is, you can barely see it. You'll be able to see a faint line once it's finished, just because of the nature of joining veneer. But it looks really good. And I'll try to get you guys a picture of that. If you see the pieces of veneer tape going vertically, that is from a mistake that I made, actually. I was a little heavy-handed with my veneer knife and ended up cracking the veneer in several spots. Not a big deal. Luckily, because this is vertical grain, any cracks that run along the grain tend to disappear once you get them taped back down. To avoid cracking your veneer, take it easy with the veneer knife. Several passes is best. There's no reason to try to hog through it in one or two passes. The other trick is to put a lot of down pressure on your fence behind the cut, so that the cut is backed up. If the trailing edge of the veneer is not doesn't have any pressure on it, when you run that knife across, it's going to be very easy to break it and to tear that out. Little word of advice: when you're veneer taping up a big panel like this, be very cautious about which side of your project has the veneer tape. Especially with this veneer, the tape tends to kind of blend in, and you kind of get in a groove and you stop focusing on what you're really doing. And you can end up with veneer tape on both sides of your panel. And that's a problem because when you go to glue this down, even though the veneer tape is very thin, if you've got veneer tape underneath veneer in one spot and nowhere else, you are going to be left with a little hump in the veneer. And I've done that before. I've tried to get away with it, and it has not turned out very good. So just be mindful that your masking tape is all on one side and your veneer tape is all on the other side. To anybody watching this, I'm sure you're going to ask me, why am I using white masking tape instead of blue masking tape or green masking tape? I like to use the white tape for a couple of reasons. The first one is it's a lot cheaper than the blue tape or the green tape. Number two, it's stickier than the blue tape and the green tape. A lot of times when I try to use blue tape for seaming veneer, I go back after a couple minutes and the tape has already lifted up. I don't know if it's gotten dusty or dirty, or if there's something in the surface of the veneer that's reacting with the adhesive, but I just find that white tape sticks better. I know the science behind the white masking tape and the blue tape. I think the white tape is designed for like I want to say like a 2 or 3 day release. The blue tape is like a 7 or 10 day release. And the green tape is even longer than that. So as long as you're going to get your masking tape off of there within a day or two, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And again, it's just a lot cheaper. Now that the panel's made up, I am going to obviously let the veneer tape dry. Once it's dry, make sure all the masking tape is off. Bring the chessboard over to my veneer panel, which is purposely larger than the chessboard itself. I'm going to place it down, make sure that I have coverage underneath the chessboard, and then just trace the chessboard onto the veneer backer panel. Then go through with my veneer knife and cut it with about 1/4 of an inch overhang on all sides where possible. Then it's going to go into my Roar Rocket vacuum press bag and get pressed down. Thanks for watching.